Hey everyone, my name is Lemlyton, and do you know how perfect would it have been to release a Scooby-Doo video in October? Well, apparently this guy didn't because he chose to play other games instead. But the time is now, and I think it's time to continue our journey of going through every Scooby-Doo game. And yeah, I'm doing fine. I know I look a little rough, but after that medical bill I got last time, I think things are starting to look a little down. But, like my grandpa always said, if you're feeling down, play some Scooby-Doo games. Let's get this show on the road by briefly talking about these two Game Boy games first. And what you know, they're based off the two live-action movies that came out in the early 2000s, which, if you know the internet, they was not very good. Personally, I thought they was fun movies to watch, and it was enjoyable for Scooby-Doo standards. But we're not here to talk about the movies, we're here to talk about the games, starting out with the first one that's based off the 2002 film, and oh god, that hurts. So this game has a gang going to a spooky island resort to solve the mystery of ghosts and figure out why the hotel has been haunted. Besides the location and characters, the story in this game resembles almost nothing from the movie, which is sorta weird but refreshing at the same time. Okay gang, let's split up and look for clues. No need, Freddy. I can solve this mystery on my own. Ever since I took karate lessons, I'm an independent woman.
I'm an independent woman too.
Anyway, this game is stupid. But before I butcher it with complaints, I think it's time to compliment it a little bit. The music is good. Let's get to the complaints. First and foremost, the graphics. Don't get me wrong, they're not bad for Game Boy standards, but when you're looking at it for, let's say, 30 minutes, you'll start to experience something I like to call headaches. The 3D looking models mixed with the awkward angle of your perspective makes it a very head-inducing experience. Even got so bad that I didn't even bother finishing the rest of the game, getting all around chapter 7 or so. But even if the graphics wasn't making my brain hurt, the boring gameplay would have done the same effect. You see, this game has a secret title. It's called, Why the F Do I Have to Backtrack All the Time? The game. Seriously, the whole game is way too open, and while it's neat to play as each gang member, only Scooby and Shaggy are able to run to make these levels go by quicker. But you see, the only characters who's able to attack is Fred and Daphne, so in order to get through this game as fast as you can, you'll have to switch back and forth in between the two. And then you have Velma. Overall, the whole game is a basic and boring fetch quest with terrible graphics. The farthest I got was when I went to this underground area and I had to kick some monsters to death. But let's check out its sequel games, Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, the one based off the better movie in my opinion.
My mommy?
Don't at me with that at me, alright? Unlike the last game, this game resembles the story to the movie almost to the exact point, even with dialogue. Not too sure if it's laziness or faithfulness to the movie, but either way, at least the game has a nicer presentation. And luckily the developers made a completely different game for a sequel, making it a, wait a minute, let me find my quotation marks, platformer instead of whatever this is. So this game isn't this, but it's that. So since it's that, it's better than this, because this game wanted me to do this, and this game wants me to do this. So I can say right now that this is probably going to be better than that. What did I just say? The game mainly consists in this gameplay, going around as either Scooby, Shaggy, or Hannah Montana. Sorry, Miley Cyrus. While playing as one of these three, you collect Scooby snacks and fight off monsters while platforming. And fun little thing, before each mission you have either Fred or Velma waving their finger like, "Uh-uh, bitch." That's great. But there is some nice breather mini-games here and they're honestly a bit enjoyable. There's a sneak mission section, a downhill sliding section, and a Scooby-Dooby don't know how to drive section. Each one is pretty diverse, and they're probably the best part of this game, because the previous mentioned platforming sections is kinda stale, and honestly has the most basic level design I've seen in a game so far. Especially with the later levels, where the game designers decided to go apeshit and crank the difficulty to a high degree. So yeah, you can imagine I solve this nightmare every time I die. But this time around, I did get to the final boss, and while it wasn't hard per se, it was lazily designed, and it just felt like they combined a bunch of different obstacles in one room. If you've seen this movie, Scooby-Doo 2, please enter the code for the movie? Oh god, maybe, let's try an S. Oh, okay, let's see, D. Okay, yeah, I think I'm getting it right, and how about 2? Ain't I just a smart cookie? That wasn't there before, I swear. Alright, well, since we got those two games out of the way, let's get to the meat of this video. That's right, we're going to the third dimension, bitch, with the all-almighty 3D Trilogy. Many people who's interested in Scooby-Doo and video games will tell you that the best game for the franchise is one of these three. It was all made with love, care, and effort. Not saying the previous games wasn't, but this was around a time where Scooby-Doo was a very popular franchise, especially with the release of new shows like What New Scooby-Doo and Mystery Incorporated. And while these 3 games followed the style of the original show, they was warm welcomes to anyone's game collection on either the PS2, Xbox, or GameCube. But while many people are nostalgic over these games, do they still hold up today? Well, let's start out with Night of 100
I love this game. So yeah, I'm what you call nostalgic for this game, which means I have no care for what your opinion is on it, because since my child mind liked it, I liked it.
From what I remembered from this game, it had that Scooby-Doo charm nailed perfectly. The music, sound effects, dialogue, monsters, everything oozed Scooby-Doo where are you, and my young Scooby-Doo loving mind adored this game. But it has been around 8 years or so since I played the game, so let's see if my thoughts will change for the better, or for the worse.
You smell that salty sea air, Scoob? You know what that means, buddy. Yeah. Seafood!
So the game starts off with the gang going to meet Daphne's friend Holly at her uncle's manor, where she tells the gang she's going to need all the help she can get cause he went missing.
Jeepers. Don't worry, Holly. We'll help you look around. You said it, Daphne. We're not afraid. Right, gang?
And just like that, the game starts. This time around you play as Scooby for the whole game, and he controls what you expect from a licensed platforming game. It's safe and basic, and it gets the job done. And hey, even has a literal playground area for you to practice your platforming before you get to the first major area, which is pretty neat. And all while Barney Fife is telling you funny jokes.
Look at all these dang blasted Scooby snacks everywhere.
The first big area is Mystic Manor, and after talking to... you slowly explore the manor and encounter some roadblocks, so you're forced to explore the other open areas, the dock and the hedge maze, where you unlock your double jump and your attack option, the helmet. The way you progress through this game is something I really enjoy and despise at the same time. I really like the way you slowly power yourself up and you get certain items to progress through the bigger levels. But the problem is to remember where you need that item. Sometimes you can encounter a roadblock early in the game, but you won't get the solution until mid-game, which at that point, you sort of forgot where you've used your newfound gadget. But luckily for me, it only encountered twice or so in my playthrough, so it wasn't a huge problem. Another thing I want to point out is the levels and presentation. The presentation is spot on. The color schemes isn't too bright and it resembles the original show pretty well. The music and sound effects sound like it was ripped straight from the show, and the enemies and characters look almost exactly like their TV counterparts. It all blends to make a nice looking Scooby-Doo game. And the levels are pretty alright too. I think they could have added a bit more diversity and creativity to the levels, but I think what we got is fine enough. Mystic Manor is a generic haunted house area, the hedge maze is a basic graveyard area, and the dock is what you would expect from a dock. Now while yes, the level design itself is basic, it's diverse enough to make an enjoyable experience. There are certain sections where Shaggy will help you out, and while they're still just platforming, it's again the presentation that brings it all together. But enough of that, we have to save Velma from
The Black Knight!
press the switch at the right times, do it 4 times, boom.
Remember the first time we met the Black Knight? We thought he was a monster, but really he was just a guy in a mask. Aha! I found him! Jinkies! The lenses got knocked out!
Wait, if you can't see without your glasses, how could you see the lens was out of the glasses without fully putting them on? Wait, is Velma just lying about her blindness this whole time to just add runtime to the show? Because she secretly knows the whole game is being recorded for entertainment purposes?
No.
So you work your way through these 3 areas saving the other 3 gang members, while unlocking new gadgets along the way. And while I'm on the subject of saving the gang members, each one comes with a boss. As you saw before, there's the Black Knight, kinda stupid, but oh well. Then you have the Green Ghost, which, Jesus Chris, it's all about a game of luck. And then you have the Pirate Redbeard. I'll just let this one speak for itself. But yeah, after going through the game, you finally discover the secret lab underneath the mansion. You work your way through the lab, and you finally encounter the mastermind of this whole scheme. The mastermind. And the boss fight is what I would have called hard when I was younger, but since I've gained some gamer experience, I can say now that this boss is lazily designed. Sorta. But this time around, it wasn't that much of a struggle to beat it, and we finally get to see who Tim Curry was this whole time.
Well, let's see who the mastermind really is.
It's Professor Alexander Graham!
Oh, me? Oh, my.
Oh man, that was the uncle? I thought it was a spooky groundskeeper.
Oh yeah, that's right. Blame the spooky groundskeeper. It's always the spooky groundskeeper. Why don't you just say
It's
the
just a joke.
butler?
It's just suspicion.
But no, it's always gotta be the groundskeeper,
Stop. Back up.
Something just doesn't add up. If you ask me, someone's playing a nasty trick. A trick of the light.
Okay.
And that was Night of 100 Frights, a nice little platformer that I enjoyed as a kid. Did I still enjoy it this time around? Yeah, actually. It was still a blast playing through it, and it's basically a Scooby-Doo episode all over again, so I really enjoyed my time playing through it.
One little thing I also forgot to mention was the monster tokens you could collect throughout the game. This feature was by far my favorite as a kid because whatever tokens you collected, you could see them in the monster gallery, which came with information about the monster and a fun little trivia fact. I don't know why I loved it as a kid, but it was fun collecting them all over again this time around, seeing how they ain't the easiest things to find. But overall, I really liked this game as a kid both times playing it. It could be the nostalgia talking, but I think this game is and will remain my favorite Scooby-Doo game. But let's not count on that just yet, because we still have to take a look at the other two games in this trilogy, with the next installment being Scooby-Doo Mystery Mayhem. More like Mystery May I Have Some Mayhem. This game begins with the gang going to the library to solve a haunted case, which turns out to be an actual ghost haunting the place. And by their facial expressions, you can tell this is some serious shit. The game first starts off leaving you vulnerable, with only a costume change keeping you safe, which is a nice nod to the show. All that changes though when you get the Tome of Doom, which if you played Luigi's Mansion before, you know this looks awfully familiar. But hey, at least it adds some kind of gameplay mechanic that makes it stand out from the other games, even though the mechanic has you mainly doing this the whole time. Another thing is that this game is surprisingly not a platformer, seeing how it plays more like classic Creep Capers on Nintendo 64, which is pretty interesting. Really, this is what classic Creep Capers should have been, but console limitations probably held it back. Anyway, the duo makes their way through the library level, and they finally uncover the fake ghost. And after finding out that there's missing pages from the Tome of Doom, the overarching mystery begins. The next place leads you to a movie studio set, and this is where the creativity starts to shine through. Of course, with something as ambitious as a movie set, you know they're going to pack a bunch of different themes within it, such as a medieval set, a Roman set, a moon set, and an Egyptian set, each one having their own nice design to it. The mystery was pretty fun overall, but it did seem a bit empty at times. The final chase sequence was pretty good though. Now the third mystery is short and sweet one, which is the Wild West mystery. The puzzles and gameplay variety made this mystery stand out to me in a good way, and the Donkey Kong 64 the minecart section, was by far the most challenging thing in the game. It seemed fair and unfair at the same time, seeing how dead ends can pop up without any indication whatsoever. But I finally got through it, solved the mystery, and went on to the fourth mystery, the Bayou.
Now this is the game where it really makes you feel smart. You see, there's a little alligator section where if you press L, you get to hide, and it really makes you feel smart. Or in other words, it's a pretty cool chapter.
It starts off with a water puzzle, which I swear it felt like the Great Bay Temple, and then you go on to the sneak mission. Here's where you play as Scooby avoiding guards and alligators, and while it's no Metal Gear Solid, it's a nice change of pace, and you eventually have another vehicle section to go through. This one was a bit more challenging than the minecart one, mainly because, oops, my permit expired. But after solving the case of the zombie-filled bayou, you finally get to the bottom of the whole mystery, and you find out that there's a company called Sherman Tech that's been behind the whole ghosts and ghouls thing. Alright, time to show these fools who's boss. Sneak around the guards? Check. Disable the cameras? Check. Control the robots? You know that's checked. Game gets mind controlled?
Actually that was next week's list, but oh well.
So I finally got to the bottom of it, and turned out these two evil-looking people want to mind control people to buy their products. But after disabling the machine while avoiding the gang trying to
Shaggy.
this girl betrays the guy and wants to
I shall rule the world!
yeah, I've seen this before, and no, that isn't coming true anytime soon.
Alright, so that was Mystery Mayhem. Definitely a different take on the Scooby-Doo games, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Like the last game, it had some flaws, but overall it was a nice experience, and I can see myself playing again sometime soon. Soon.
Okay, let's finish up this trilogy with the last game, Scooby-Doo Unmasked, which returns to its roots of being a platformer, but being a bit more linear this time around. The game starts with the gang, jeez, how many times have I said that, going to Fred's cousin's workplace until they find out that he went missing, according to the owners of the place. They say that they think Jed stole their invention, Mubber, which can create lifelike monsters' effects and costumes, aka the excuse to have enemies in the game. The factory section is basically a tutorial level to get you ready for the first level, Chinatown.
Chinatown. Jed's first stop.
So I might as well start talking about how the game controls, and it's pretty fluid all around. Platforming was never a pain thanks to a double jump, and attacking enemies was fun due to different ways you can do it. You can spin, roll, and use one of your costumes. Speaking of which, you can unlock costumes to give you abilities throughout the game. The Kung Fu one giving this Hadouken, the Bat one allowing you to glide, and the Robin Hood one allowing you to shoot projectiles. Another thing that doesn't hurt this game is its presentation. While it doesn't feel like the original show like Night of 100 Frights did, it sure does feel like a Scooby-Doo game, and with the upgraded animation and music, it makes it another great looking Scooby-Doo game. But let's go ahead and talk about the first world, Chinatown, which, let's just say it, a nice starter place. There are some unique level design areas such as the anime water skiing section, but it's pretty basic all around. But that basicness gets thrown all out the window when you reach the second world, Rockin' Roller Coaster Land. This one is a carnival theme world, which has been something pretty common so far in these games, but I really like the approach in this world. Each smaller level you go through has a unique mechanic, and I really did enjoy it. One level has you going through a roller coaster avoiding obstacles, while the other has you going after Shaggy on a water slide while listening to what sounds like Chowder music.
Weren't you listening to my song?
The same can be said about the museum level too. I enjoyed my time with it as well, and it was fun seeing the different themes in the world, but I do have to say it seemed to play a little bit safe in level design. Nothing really stood out to me like the last two worlds did. And oh yeah, each world had their own boss fight too. Chinatown had this dragon where you had to Hadouken it to death, the fairground had this guitar ghoul making fun of you, and finally my favorite one, the caveman and UFO. I've seen it all. But it eventually comes full circle and you end up back at the factory where you find out it was Mr. the whole time. You retrace your way through the level once more and you end up fighting the final boss, which was pretty neat seeing how it combined all three costumes you have throughout the game. But it wasn't really much of a challenge. And also it wasn't Mr. it was his ass is tant.
Marcy. But why?
Because I helped create Mubber, but you took all the credit for it. I thought that if I gave you a bad name, I could start up my own business. Mr. Stanton, is this true?
Marcy, I didn't know you felt this way. You should have talked to me about it. Destroying the reputation of monstrous fright and magic would destroy Mubber. I'm sorry if I hurt you, Marcy. I'd like you to become a partner in the company. If you can forgive me, that is.
Yeah, I think I can do that.
Lesson well learned. And we also have technology that can resemble any human being when possibly it could be alien technology, but yeah, lesson still learned. So that was the 3D Trilogy, and honestly they're probably the best 3 games out of the whole franchise. They had some flaws and some ups and downs, but they're honestly 3 well put together games, and I can tell people had actual fun making these. I'm just glad I was able to play games this time around where I actually can enjoy myself and have a good time. There's Game Boy versions.
Alright, we're running a bit low on time right now, so let's quickfire these last 2 Game Boy games. First, Unmasked. This one is a point A to point B platformer, and it stayed safe doing that. Gameplay and sprites look pretty dang good, and the level design is a bit basic, but it gets the job done. Platforming was easier too, seeing how a double jump helped me throughout most of my playthrough. I didn't end up beating this one, but I do have to complain that the levels seem to go on far too long, with each one taking around 25 to 40 minutes to complete. Also, side note, Fred, slow the f down. Now, Mystery Mayhem, oh god, level design sucks. Oh god, it's a fetch quest game. Oh god, it takes 3 hours to complete. I'm not doing that. The game basically follows the story of its 3D counterpart, but in a more simpler way. But that's not what the problem is. The problem is the big levels and how easy it is to get lost. The game also uses the Tome of Doom, but it's way easier to catch ghosts, making it not even a challenge when you get near them. The game overall feels too claustrophobic and tedious, and while it wasn't giving me major headaches, it was sure boring to play, and I found myself to get lost almost every other second.
So one Game Boy game was trash and the other one was a decent little game. Are we done?
Scooby-Doo Unmasked for the DS. It's the Game Boy version, but with 3D models, alright? Nothing special. Maybe a few things here and there, but it basically plays the same.
Look, sorry. I'm sorry I'm rushing things, but I promised the hospital that I have all the money back by tomorrow. But apparently writing Switch x GameCube fanfics isn't doing much for me. I need to find some way to make this money. What's that? Hello?
Hey man, I heard he was in some deep shit. Well, I didn't tell you this, but the abandoned house on Farm Road has been rumored to have thousands of dollars stored somewhere inside of it. But there's already a few people there looking for it, so you better act quick. Oh, why do I need it? Well, let's just say writing Switch X GameCube fanfics get you a load of money. Alright, see you later.